Here is Maurice Strong, 3 minutes or 5. Isn't the only hope for the planet that the industrialized civilizations collapse? Now that's Maurice Strong. He's occupied the UN throne behind Kofi Annan and many of the other leaders of the UN. Isn't that a nice thought? The planet that the industrialized civilizations collapse. Isn't it our responsibility to bring that about? That's what's going on behind the scenes. Just today, on Fox News, it's on the internet now, I pass it out to 100 of my email lists, is a document describing the impacts of cap and trade measures, taxation on energy, and so forth. And it will have massive effect on our economy. If you think about rationing fossil fuel, think about trucking and rail and air and concrete production. Every item in the mall over there has been delivered by a truck. And now they're talking about rationing fossil fuel and limiting its use. And everybody understands that it will have a horrific impact on our economy. All right. Well, here's one of our American opponents, Paul Ehrlich. Giving society cheap energy at this point would be the equivalent of giving an idiot child a machine gun. Now, I have my own opinion of Dr. Ehrlich. He's a butterfly expert. And yet, this guy, with this kind of a heritage, is now a member of the National Academy of Science, which many of our congressmen, such as Jay Inslee and Jim McDermott, view the National Academy of Science as the gold standard in science, and it's no longer that. Next. Oh, yes, this is very, very, very important. The role of the IPC is to assess on a comprehensive, objective, and open, transparent basis the scientific and technical and social economic information relevant to understanding the scientific basis of risk of human-induced climate change, its potential impact and options for adaptation and mitigation. This is right out of the IPC documents. What's important is what it doesn't include. It doesn't include natural forces, a study of the sun, of the oceans, and other factors that drive our climate. It initially started with being focused on only man-made activity, and that man-made activity was basically Western society, and that's code word for us, capitalism. It's despised at the highest level of the United Nations. Okay. So my message is that you are in danger. This is the same political movement that opposes nuclear energy, that now opposes fossil energy, and as you've noticed in some times, they are opposed to hydro energy in the Northwest. It's all tied together here. They understand that energy means everything to our freedom and our liberties and our economy and our prosperity. And nations around the world understand how we got there. And rather than improve themselves, we've tried by the billions in foreign aid and donating energy production capabilities to these nations. They continue to find peace and solace in criticizing the United States. I think I will end right there.
I'll take the mic. Thank you, Mike. What we will do now is ask our two speakers to take a seat at the place of honor here. I'm not going to guess as to who should sit on the left and who should sit on the right. My mother only raised one dummy, but he doesn't live here.
Doesn't matter to me.
The rules are that if you are a, how about one on each side? The rules are that if you are a Badger Club member, you may ask a question. We ask that you signal me, and I will bring the microphone to you. And we will, if you would, give us your name, please, and address the question to one speaker or the other, and we will give both speakers the opportunity to answer the question. The first hand I saw up belongs to Martin Bensky.
I guess, Chuck, I have one question. I have several, actually, but the one that gets me is, until your very last chart, your data did not make any distinction between natural forces and man-made contribution. Only on the last one did you say it was man's input of CO2 to the atmosphere that was destroying us. Was there anything in previous charts that supported that particular breakdown, that it's largely man-made, and that it's man-made sufficient to where if we cut back on driving, that we will help the situation? Or is the situation already out of control? And I guess I'd want to introduce the idea of, what about the rest of the world? You know, can America do this by itself?
Well, you hit on a number of things there. I tried to emphasize toward the end of my talk that man's influence on the climate is on top of all the natural things going on. And so all of the last plot I showed does show a distinct correlation between CO2 increase and global average temperatures. But
Man-made CO2 increase, or
well, if you
a lot of CO2, I've heard.
Right, but if you look primarily, we have in the last about 100 years the CO2 has increased by 50% by large. Most of that has come from man's industrial society, yes, not natural sources. The natural sources were primarily the background after that. Warming oceans will release more CO2, but it takes quite a while and a lot of energy to raise the temperature of water. That's one of the things that is confusing when you look at the climate record, that people claim that there were massive rises in CO2 after a warming. And that's because it takes so long to heat up the oceans significantly enough that they will release their CO2. So you got to be careful you don't confuse cause and effect there. The biggest difference now is that if you look at the climate record, we have spiked the CO2 in 100 years. If you look at past climate relationships between CO2 level in the atmosphere and global temperatures, never has the CO2 increased that much in that short a time. If you look at those 100,000 year plots, it looks like, whoa, it went right up. Well, that's really thousands of years. I see I got 10 seconds. I don't know if I helped you, but, and finally, no, the U.S. cannot do it alone. It's a global problem.
Mike Fox.
Well, the consensus of the people that I talk with, and I'm not the expert, but boy, I'm in contact with them, that keep these in mind. 95% of the global warming gases is water vapor. We're talking about the last 1% in the atmosphere. 99% of it is not oxygen and nitrogen, which is not the topic here today. The last 1%, 95% of that is water vapor. Of that remaining 5%, 97% of that is natural CO2. It's not man-made. So we're talking small potatoes here. And it provides what I would call a scientific mask to hide the agenda that I'm talking about. This is precious little to do with science. It has a lot to do about foreign effects on our economy, our freedom, our liberty, and our prosperity, and so forth. We are looked upon as the piggy bank for the rest of the world. And people around the world, if there's 200 nations in the UN, 180 of them are sitting on their haunches, lobbying people in the UN, and coming up with some of the wildest schemes showing that man-made CO2 from those greedy capitalistic Americans is causing them damage in 180 countries. And therefore, you and I are going to be on the hook to pay them reparations for the damage that we allegedly caused. We're going to do that, by the way, at the same time that we ration ourselves severely with coal and nuclear and hydro energy. That's the scheme.